Welcome to another Hawkeyed with me, Dave O'Hara. Pleased to be joining you this week again. Owen Sebring, back for more. He joined us a couple weeks ago. Of course, he's part of that fantastic crew at Fox 28 CBS 2, Iowa's News Now. He's the sports anchor there. Recording this late Monday afternoon on November 24th, pre-Thanksgiving. So again, happy Thanksgiving to the viewers and you, Owen. Thanks for joining us. How you doing, my friend?
Good. Yeah, happy to be here. Happy to kind of get a lot of our busy season out of the way. High school season's over with, and we're just transitioning to basketball. And pretty soon, Hawkeye football season and we'll be over with. It went by in a blink, and already shot our last game at Kinnick Stadium for the year.
Hawks, of course, with the last second walk-off field goal from senior Drew Stevens. Owen, a 20-17 victory. If the expression the Hawkeyes reached in and grabbed victory from the jaws of defeat ever applied, that Michigan State game was just smiling with me on camera. You were there. You pretty much said that in your post-game shooting or your post-game segment that you did. Talk about that game for 3 quarters, nothingness, except Caden Weegan. Boom, the Hawks play in the fourth, Owen.
Well, you've got me wearing a Denver Broncos polo today. That is my team, and Saturday's game reminded me a lot of the 2012 Broncos season. Earlier this year, on the Eye on the Hawks podcast, we talked about the comparison between Mark Gronowski and Tim Tebow, and boy, that comparison was never more true than on Saturday, where for 3.5 quarters. Gronowski seemed to be digging himself a hole every single possession, and then the last 4 minutes of the game, he just found a way to dig himself out of that hole. It was as ugly as it got. I was already kind of pre-writing my intros and my outros and my storyline for the package about this being maybe a top 5, maybe top 3 most embarrassing loss of the Kirk Ferentz era. But sure enough, there at the end, it's like they closed the playbook. I mean, I talked during the game about how it seemed like they were playing an FCS opponent that they were up 20 points, except they were down. I'm just like, guys, why do you keep running the ball? Just the play calling just boggled my mind. I didn't understand, but still, they found those 4 minutes to open the playbook back up again, and they needed every single sequence of events to turn out just right for them, and that is exactly what happened. Similar to the Nebraska game each of the last 2 years.
Okay,
Yep.
Legion, no surprise to anybody, is the Big Ten Special Teams Player of the Week award winner. Owen, do you know, is he the National Special Teams Award winner, or has that not come out yet?
That one we haven't heard yet, but I know they just sent out a press release maybe an hour or so ago saying he was the Big Ten Special Teams Player of the Week, and that's been a conversation this year about, is he the greatest return man in Hawkeye history? And it seems like just undisputedly you have to say yes at this point. He's got more return touchdowns than any player that's ever suited up for the Hawkeyes, more than Tim Dwight, who I know holds a very special place in Hawkeye history. And we certainly wouldn't argue that he was the better overall player than Tim Dwight, because I think he had a couple thousand receiving yards in his career. So it's not like you could totally draw the parallel that he's better overall than Dwight. But in terms of returners, you have to say this is the greatest Hawkeye who's ever suited up for this team in the return game.
He really believes that he should score every time he touches the ball, doesn't he, Owen?
Boy, and that first touchdown, he really could have, honestly. Like he had a seam there where if he had cut right in that first one, he could have returned, what would that have been? About a 94, 95-yard punt return touchdown.
Yes.
I mean, he believes it, and Hawkeye fans, I think, are starting to believe it. Every time he gets his hands on the ball, that the kid is just fearless out there. I think until maybe 1 or 2 weeks ago, he had not called for a fair catch all season. No fair catches. And then I think we saw at least one on Saturday. I think he had 1 or 2 maybe against Oregon, but still the kid just every single play, unless there are 3 players standing directly in front of him, he's going to find a way to catch the ball and just jump out of the way right away or something. It really is miraculous. And you have to think that this kid, even though he's small, he's undersized, and he's kind of a specialist position, you have to think he's going to get a shot in the NFL because of what he does when he gets his hands on the football in the return game.
But Phil Parker stepped up with his defense, and they called all the right signals and got the key stop. And then Gronowski came out. And Owen, as you mentioned, looked like he and the rest of the team almost were sleepwalking for the first 2.5 or 3 quarters or 3.5 quarters. But when he needed to, 3 big passes in the fourth quarter specifically that stand out to me. A great catch by Reese Vanderzee, a great catch who's becoming a very reliable tight end receiver in DJ Vanami. I mean, there were some fantastic catches, and of course, it was a great throw, but a great catch by Gill in the end zone for the touchdown, too. So those 3 stand out, and there were other big plays. But we got to tip our caps to the defense stepping up in prime time, but also for Mark Gronowski and that offense when they needed to as well, Owen.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I compared it to the Nebraska game last year and last 2 years, just because the team put themselves in a place where everything just really needs to go exactly right in the last 3 minutes, and that's what they provided last year and this year, where the team needed to stop. You had hundreds of fans already filing out of the stadium, and I was like, we're a little early to be leaving the stadium. If Iowa does get one defensive stop here. If they get a three and out, they are still in this game. And they got that three and out. And then they had to punt it away. And then Iowa scores. And then they got another three. I mean, they did, even though they should have won that game probably by 28 points, they got down by double digits in the fourth quarter and they still kept their wits about them. And that's something that not every team in that scenario would probably do. That does have to say something about Phil Parker, about Kirk Ferentz, and the belief he instills in this team. Even when they're playing a top 10 team in the country, they're going to believe they can win in the fourth quarter. Even if they're down against a terrible team in the fourth quarter, they still believe that they can come back and win that game. So it really goes to show the effort and the attitude and belief that this team has in themselves.
So he's Owen Sebring. I'm Dave O'Hara. We'll be back with more Hawkeye.
Hawkeyed is brought to you by BettorEdge, your ultimate social betting marketplace. With no VIG, you're bound to win more on every bet on BettorEdge. Founded by Hawkeye alum James Siles and proud Iowan Greg Kieski, BettorEdge delivers an unmatched betting experience. Plus, what's not to love when they're committed to supporting charities and children's hospitals near you? Join the action now. Sign up at bettoredge.com/Hawkeyed and get $10 to start winning more today. BettorEdge, where your social betting means your bets go further and you win more.
Welcome back to Hawkeye with me, Dave O'Hara. Momentarily, your still buddy Owen Sebring joining us. He was kind enough to join us in the first segment talking Hawkeye football. Well, he agreed to come back, as he usually does, for segment 2 to talk Hawkeye men's and women's basketball. We'll close out the show in segment 3 with Mike Palmer, our sports betting segment. Of course, you know Mike, an Iowa native and VP of operations at Circa Sports. So, Owen, thanks for staying over. You're the sports anchor there at Fox 28, CBS 2, Iowa's News Now, that fantastic Eye on the Hawks podcast. Let's you and I talk Hawkeye men's and women's basketball. Let's start with the women first. As we record this on Monday afternoon, November 24th, happy Thanksgiving again early to you viewers, but also to Owen and everybody else. We're recording on Monday instead of Tuesdays because of the Thanksgiving holiday upcoming. So the Nebraska game and Iowa game, where Hawkeyes hopefully will have won already, will have been played. The Hawkeye women have a game going into the Thanksgiving holiday. I don't really want to get into much against that. And Fairfield should be a walk away at Carver Hawkeye Arena for the women. But Owen, what a week in Florida, Orlando specifically, the land of the mouse. The Hawkeye women beat Baylor and then come back and win a tough one against University of Miami in Florida, in Orlando. Hawkeye women jump up in today's AP poll from 19th to 11th, and I got to believe on the rise. But let's not forget, Owen, we've got an upcoming top 10 matchup, presumably against Iowa State. They're in the top 10 now, AP, a few spots ahead of the Hawkeyes. But also the Hawkeye women in December play UConn. So there's still a little bit of a heavy schedule before they get into the conference, and they'll play a couple of conference games before the new year like the men will. But before we talk about Ben McCollum and his guys, the Hawkeye women, Owen, what they got going on with the triple threat in the post, Layla Hayes, but the two starters in Hannah Stuelke and Ava Hayden. She has just picked up from where she was last year. And it's kind of take your pick, Owen, of which one of the three is going to get a double-double. But the post position in the post whisperer, who better than Jan Jensen to be their coach? A lot of good players from the guards helping out with Taylor McCabe, and you've got Taylor Stremlow, Kylie Fearbach. Again, I mentioned Hannah Stuelke. You've got some of the veterans chipping in, but Owen, it all starts and stops with the Hawkeyes in that post, does it not?
Yeah, and it's been a big change from what we've seen the last couple of years. After Monica Sonano left, Hannah Stuelke was the best big on the team, and she's still a little bit undersized to really bang around there with players like Camila Cardoso. And so I think that we are really seeing the team turn the corner again to be more of a post-heavy team, which I think is great. It fits Jan Jensen's system so well, and is obviously working wonders for the Hawkeyes so far. Ava Hayden just today was named the Big Ten Player of the Week for the last week. So she's just been outstanding since the start of last year's Big Ten tournament. Just everything that you could want out of a player like this. And the post is such a dangerous spot. We don't always get to see a lot of Layla Hayes because of how dominant Ava and Hannah have been so far. But boy, I really like her a lot. And I think that if there's ever any foul trouble or any injury issues, I think that Layla Hayes is going to fit in seamlessly to that lineup. So the post play has been awesome. Guard play has been great. I think everybody's been surprised at what we've seen out of Chit Chat right so far coming to this roster and really performing so well just from the outset with this team. She obviously suffered the injury in that game against Baylor, and we did not see her play against Miami, which is great for the Hawkeye women's team to know that they can pick up the pieces without one of their best players out there and still beat a really talented Miami team as well. And so I don't think that Jan, considering the next couple opponents, they're playing Western Illinois and Fairfield this week. And so I don't think that Jan will rush Chit Chat back from the injury because they know they've got a gauntlet coming up in the month of December.
Well stated. And by the way, Ava Hayden, also the MOP, most outstanding player of that tournament in Florida. So the accolades continue. By the way, I wanted to add a little context to what I said earlier. The Hawkeye women play Fairfield. They actually play Western Illinois before Fairfield, but this will all be before I record next week's show. So we'll have the results for you then. And oh, by the way, Owen, in that conference game we talked about before the new year, they'll play Rutgers and Iowa State. I don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves. But Hawkeye women 6-0, undefeated, 11th in the country. So a lot of good to talk about them. So now let's transition over to Ben McCollum and his guys. By the time this show airs, and we'll talk about it next week, but the Hawkeye men, 5-0, rolling, drawn good crowds too at Carver Hawkeye, which, of course, the women are sold out every game. The Hawkeye men, some of these non-con games, not great opponents. Xavier was a quality opponent, but they handled them pretty easily. But Owen, anywhere between 9,500 and 11,000 for these home games during the week. Not bad. A couple of Friday night games, so still not bad. Now the Hawkeye men, it gets real. Again, as we record this on Monday, November 24th, they play tomorrow in Palm Springs.
That's right. Yeah. And this year, one of my new additions to my resume is that I'm now an Associated Press men's basketball voter this season. And so I get a chance to have a say in who's going to get in the top 25. And so I have not put the Hawkeyes in my top 25 yet over the first, either the preseason or the first 3 weeks. The new AP poll just came out today as we record on Monday. But I have said that if they are still undefeated by this time next week, then they for sure are going to go into my top 25 because no matter how you slice it, Ole Miss, that's a team that was in the Sweet 16 last year. That's a really high-quality opponent, as would be whoever they end up playing next, whether it's Grand Canyon or Utah. And so if I think they are already receiving a handful of top 25 votes from some of my colleagues in the Associated Press. And so I think that they could really show people something if they manage to pull off these 2 wins. And boy, then the schedule doesn't get any easier because they too have Iowa State in December, along with their starting Big Ten play, I know, against Michigan State, who's ranked right now. They've been outstanding so far. So even though they've got a tough schedule this week, they are really going to get tested even before we turn over the calendar to 2026.
Quality, effective, and efficient offense. That's what we're seeing. And then, of course, that lockdown defense for the most part. And I love what Ben McCollum says because you've been around practices and some of these pressers. He was like, man, we can't wait for games because the other team's defense, our guys feel like they get a bit of a break because we play such tough defense against each other at practice. And that's another amazing quality of this team that makes me smile and go, man, they know how to play some D, don't they, Owen?
Yeah, they do. And I haven't been fortunate enough to get a chance to see all their games so far. I've been so busy covering high school football and other things that I haven't been out to as many of their games as I'd like to see. But nevertheless, they are still fun. And I just hear the Hawkeye fans so rejuvenated in watching this team. Like, wow, this team really can shoot the ball and they can play lockdown defense. They're fun, they're energetic, they're likable. Just everything about this team is so different than what we've had the last few seasons. And yeah, you have to like where this team is going, not just for the future, but this year. Boy, I mean, it's still so early to speculate what this team's postseason hopes are, but through 5 games, what the teams look like is they do once again look like a possible tournament team.
As the newly minted AP voter this year, as you mentioned, I know you haven't been there to see them play as much as you'd like, but I know you're keeping your eye on them online and other clips. And as you said, what you're hearing from fans, and of course, you're watching the whole basketball landscape. So it'll be interesting all year to talk to you because you're going to have a great handle on seeing certain snippets and clips of teams throughout the country, not just in the Big Ten, but my goodness, though, and you look through this Big Ten, and again, as an AP voter, this is going to be another whopper of a season in the Big Ten. Oh, man, the competition gets thick once they get into the conference.
Yeah, it's really, I mean, obviously including the West Coast teams is tough. I mean, Michigan State, I can't say enough about how good I think they are. I'm a little bit low on Michigan right now. They haven't proven to me that they frankly belong in the top 10. I know a lot of other voters have them still pretty high, but they've underwhelmed me a bit so far. But nevertheless, with the Axel Langenberg, Michigan is a really good team. UCLA is a really talented team. Wisconsin and Indiana have been kind of creeping around the top 25 so far. I mean, there's just so many teams that are going to test United and out. Nebraska, honestly, has been pretty good this year under Fred Hoiberg. They're unbeaten right now in the league, just coming off a 1-point win over Kansas State. And so most of this comes from, yes, me paying a little bit closer attention to the rest of the country in college basketball, certainly more than previous years. But the Big Ten, are they the best team in America or the best conference in America? Probably not. They're not maybe to that point, but that's going to really play itself out once we start conference play.
Two tidbits to add to that. Let's not forget Purdue at the top of, depending on the week, at the top of the poll. Matt Painter and his guys. But yes, Price Sanford with Nebraska specifically, not just Nebraska, but Price, who's been on this show the last 2 years. And I'm going to have Price on either after the season, probably not during the season. But, he left Iowa when Fran McCaffrey left Iowa. And now he's doing very well at Nebraska. So, he's a Des Moines area kid. So it's kind of equal distance from either Iowa City to Des Moines to Nebraska. And he really didn't want to leave Iowa, but just the way things played out, this has worked out well for him at Nebraska. And until they play Iowa, I'm always pulling for a Stanford, especially Price now that Peyton's no longer playing college basketball. But good to see, as you mentioned, a lot of great stuff happening early in the men's basketball season. And, of course, women's basketball season, as we talked about earlier. Owen, my friend, it is always great to see you. Safe travels. Happy Thanksgiving. And we'll catch up with you again when you come back because we got to talk more basketball with you. And also, we'll know where the Hawkeyes are going bowling next time you and I talk. So thank you again so much. We'll look forward to talking to you soon.
Yep. Thanks a lot, Dave.
Truly my pleasure. Folks, there he is, Owen Sebring. He is the sports anchor at Iowa's News Now, Fox 28, CBS 2, as well as part of that Eye on the Hawks podcast. I'm Dave O'Hara with Hawkeye. I'll be back to close out the show with Mike Palm, VP of Operations from Circa Sportsbook, and we'll talk more Hawkeyed and Hawkeyes. I'm Dave O'Hara with Hawkeye. Back with more in just a few moments.
For higher yields and greater consistency across every acre, check out Mershman Seeds Power Core Enlist Corn. Here's Lynn Williams, our General Sales Manager.
Mershman Seeds Power Core Enlist corn growers are talking about high yield potential and consistency across their acres. And that comes from brand new high yield germplasm combined with the Power Core herbicide trait package engineered to boost performance and put more bushels in your hopper at harvest.
Contact your local Mershman Seeds dealer today and ask them about Power Core Enlist Corn from Mershman Seeds, your friend in the field.
Welcome back to Hawkeye with me, Dave O'Hara. Momentarily, you'll see our good buddy Mike Palm joining us on the screen. Yeah, that Mike Palm, VP of Operations at the world's biggest and best sports book in Vegas, but throughout the country now and also on apps. Circa Sports, at Circa Sports via social media and circasports.com. Of course, I got to say this proudly. Mike is an Iowa native like myself. Mike from Northeast Iowa, the Dubuque area. And Mike now in Vegas for many, many years, ruling the roost, setting lines, everything else as the VP of Operations at Circa. Mike, my friend, it is always great to see you. Thanks for taking time to join us. Got the Christmas tree behind you, getting ready to decorate as we roll into Thanksgiving. I want to let the viewers know, as I mentioned earlier in this program, we're recording this a day earlier than our usual Tuesday recordings. Monday afternoon, November 24th, late afternoon. There's your timestamp, so any references we make, understand. By the time this show airs, the Hawkeyes will already have hopefully beaten the Cornhuskers. Mike, there's your lead in right there as you kind of smile with me. The line has kind of bounced around. Again, thanks for joining us. Great to see you. But the line has kind of bounced around since opening 24 hours ago, mid-afternoon on Sunday yesterday, from 4.5 and 38.5 is the over-under. Hawks favored by 4.5. Where is it today with you guys at Circa, please, Mike?
Yeah, here as we sit on late Monday afternoon in Iowa, we're at 6 now. So we've seen plenty of Hawkeye money come in, as you did last week with Penn State. That was really a runaway line with Nebraska at Penn State, and Penn State probably had their best performance of the year. Obviously, Raiola makes a ton of difference to this team. And if he were in this game, I think would probably be near a pick. But we see Iowa at 6 right now, total up a little bit to 39.5 off of the 38.5. Of course, it's very important to Iowa to get to 8-4 as far as what kind of a bowl assignment they'll get. I think it's also important to several other teams, including Oregon, who you heard Dan Lanning comment. We beat good teams. It's not our fault if they fall out of the top 25. He needed Iowa to beat Michigan State last week, and I think Oregon is helped by Iowa beating Nebraska this week as well.
Mike, as always, you're the perfect guy for this show during our sports betting segment, but for this reason as well, besides being a native Iowan and a good buddy of me and the show. The Vegas Bowl, Las Vegas Bowl seems very real for the Hawkeyes, potentially if they beat the Cornhuskers. How about a New Year's Eve for Iowans to go indoors, Allegiant Stadium, and enjoy the Hawkeyes playing another big team? They've already played USC and Oregon. Could be UW, University of Washington. Could be some interesting matchups. But you mentioned Nebraska not having their starting quarterback, Dylan Raiola. He's been out for quite a while and the rest of this year. Also, be interesting to note that, as you just mentioned, Penn State hammered him pretty good last Saturday, 37-10. Wrong time to play Penn State. Iowa got lucky, I think, playing them early during the James Franklin firing and going in to that transition. But, Mike, a couple of different things. Besides the Vegas Bowl, they're talking about the Hawks potentially, if they beat Nebraska, could go to the Music City Bowl in Nashville. They've been there before. Could go back to Florida for the nth time. But, Mike, I wouldn't mind going west for a change. And they've been to Arizona a few times, California, obviously. But I'd love to see the Hawks in Vegas. Give me some of your takeaways. Hawks right now, as you mentioned, 7-4, 5-3 in the Big Ten. Nebraska's 7-4, 4-4 in the Big Ten. This game does a lot to jockey position this last game of the year on Black Friday. New or 11 a.m. kick Central Time on CBS. Again, that game will be played by the time this show airs. But let's still chop it up a little bit about it, if you don't mind, please, Mike.
Yeah, well, I think it's important for them to get to be tied for fifth in the Big Ten, right? And people thought going into the year possibly the Big Ten could get 4 in the playoffs. It looks like 3, with Ohio State and Indiana being obvious, and Oregon likely, should they close out against Washington here. That Washington loss would be helpful to Iowa in that it would elevate them into a clear 5th, which it would be the next tier and probably, the next team taken after Michigan when they dole out the bowl assignments at that point. So, every market would love to have the Hawkeyes because they travel so darn well, just like Wisconsin. You bring so many fans wherever you go, whether it's Florida. I mean, been to Music City over and over again. I'm sure the Iowa fans would like a trip to Southern California or Las Vegas, and we would love to have all the Iowa fans out here as well. We're having great basketball this week in Las Vegas with the New Era tournament. 16 of the top teams, and we just heard that next year they're going to have 32 teams in the New Era. They're going to play week 1, week 2, and then have a week 3 of the winners come back. So this is quickly becoming the biggest tournament of the year outside of March, replacing the Maui Classic and the now defunct Great Alaska Shootout, and even the Bahamas. This is clearly becoming the preeminent spot. And oh, by the way, tomorrow out here, it's a heck of a basketball game in Palm Springs between Iowa and Mississippi.
But, Mike, wherever the Hawks go for bowl, as you mentioned, they travel very well. So wherever they go bowling, whether it be Vegas, Nashville again, or Florida again, tell whomever's in charge to, as you know, stock up on the Busch Light, right?
Absolutely. It's just like people want to say, well, Notre Dame doesn't have a quality win enough to get in the playoffs and they lost to Miami. Don't think that committee doesn't understand the ratings that Notre Dame brings as well as attendance at the site. It's the same thing with the Hawkeyes when bowl committees have to decide and they're flipping a coin between 2 Big Ten teams. They're going to look at the team that has the most economic impact to their community.
And we know that's the Hawks, especially, again, Anheuser-Busch Light. So go get it, Hawk fans, as always. So, Mike, a couple of things. Like I said, next time I will talk basketball with you, and thanks for touching on it today. But let's you and I talk a couple of things you've got going on at Circa that affect our immediate viewers. I'm adding stations to the network now. I've got 1 to 5 throughout the state of Iowa, but adding one in Western Illinois, Eastern Missouri, Southeast Iowa. So getting kind of the map covered here and going to be adding that either before the end of the year or the start of the new year. You've got some things happening with the app in Iowa, but also sports betting has been legalized in Missouri. So let's talk a little bit about both of those states in reference to Circa Sports. Please, Mike, update us.
Yeah, Dave. Well, they're tied together because our new app, that's our product that we built over the last 2 years, we rolled out in Iowa in mid-October. And there were some hiccups. We had some issues with the in-game product, which we were able to iron out in about 2 weeks. So we're real happy right now with where we wanted to be. More sources to fund, more sources to withdraw now available in Iowa, a lot more user-friendly, and you're seeing more in-game options. That's the product we're taking to Missouri. Last week on Monday, we opened up the funding period in Missouri, the 2-week ramp up to next Sunday night. It'll be 10 p.m. out here in Las Vegas, but of course, it'll be midnight in Iowa and Missouri, and that's when the first bets can take place. Derek and I and a small team will be in Missouri, specifically in the St. Louis area. I think we're going to arrive around 8 o'clock Central Time next Sunday, and then be at the Blues Ducks game on Monday the 1st, if all goes to schedule there, though, for the big launch. So very excited and very appreciative of what we've been able to accomplish with the new app.
Mike, great to see you again. Thank you so much.
Happy Thanksgiving to you and to all of your viewers, Dave.
Thank you so much, Mike. Likewise. For Mike Palm, Owen Sebring, and my production partners at Better Edge and BetterEdge.com, Greg Kajewski and James Stiles, I'm Dave O'Hara with Hawkeye. Happy Thanksgiving to you all, and we'll talk to you next week. That's all from me at Hawkeye. Thanks to all of you.